Hey guys, STLYoungblood back with you, and I'm back from vacation. And today what I wanted to do was talk to you a little bit about the new Cutlass variants that have recently been released. Now, I know in the Reclaimer video I said that I was going to try and be quicker about getting these out, but in all fairness, for me, I was out of town for the last 4 days, so it's not really my fault. Maybe it kind of is, whatever. But let's go ahead and get started on breaking these down. And when we talk about these new variants, we've got black, red, and blue. And that sort of feels like we're playing a Pokemon game here, but whatever. So the Cutlass overall, which we've come to know and love as the pirate ship of the group, or maybe to some, and like myself, it's more of just a great utilitarian ship. It now has had kind of a facelift with some new variants that are going to be available to upgrade to, or you can just flat out purchase if you so see fit. So with that in mind, let's break down what these colored names actually mean, starting out with the black. Now, your current Cutlass, if you have one, is now the black, and is basically the utilitarian Cutlass of the group. It's more or less kind of the blank canvas for you to do with it as ever you see fit. And I kind of like to think of it like the 300 series, where the 300i can add things to make it similar to like the 315 or the 325. It's kind of like that. The primary difference, though, is that on the Cutlasses, they're actually different holes. So that means you're never going to be able to make them identical to each other. Now, if you get the stock Cutlass, you can add or remove stuff and basically make them similar to each other, which may be a good option to do if you're not sure what you really want to do at this point. Or if you just want to spend the money in game, just know you're never going to make the black exactly the same as a red. So I think what would probably be the most helpful would be to explain what the red and blue actually have to give you kind of an idea of some of the differences. But before that, let's really just run down what exactly you get on your stock or your black Cutlass. In the black, you're going to be able to carry 150 freight units of cargo, which is going to be the most of all three of the Cutlass variants. The black is also the lightest of the three variants by about 2,000 to 3,000 kilograms, meaning it's probably the most nimble overall. That being said, though, when we talk blue, you're going to kind of see why the blue may be the fastest or it may not be the fastest, and we'll kind of get to that in a minute. On the black, though, its engines are listed as Silent 4, which likely means that you're going to have a significantly lower signature, and that's going to be great to sneak up on your prey a little bit easier. And I'm talking to you guys, pirates. Now combine that with the larger cargo that we mentioned, and you can start to see why the black really fits that piracy bill so well. Now as far as the weapons go, I'm not going to really list them all out, but the black doesn't come stock with missiles. However, they can be added to your Class 3 mounts, which are at the base of your wings on the Cutlass. With the black model, you're also going to get the docking collar as well as the tractor turret, both of which should pretty much help with like boarding actions and pulling in your booty. And read that as probably loot or debris or people or whatever. You're going to be able to easily get those into your ship. When you put that all together, the black should give you a fairly stealthy, nimble ship that's also going to be fairly well armed and can really carry whatever goods you gather through your nefarious or legit gains. Now, the blue Cutlass is a limited time sale right now, and it's going on until the 20th, I believe. And I'm fairly confident you're going to be able to procure a blue in the persistent universe. But that basically said, or that being said, they've already mentioned that it's going to be more rare. So with that in mind, it's going to be harder to find. It's probably going to be more expensive. And when we talk about rarity, I think it's also important to remember that it's probably going to take longer to replace it through insurance claims if and when it's actually destroyed. Now, what the blue variant is listed as is a police variant. Though personally, when I look at it more as a bounty hunter ship. Either way, though, the blue comes with some nice perks that make it a little bit more tanky than the other options. Now, of the group, the blue is currently the only variant that actually comes with a larger shield. And that shield can be as large as a size 5, whereas the other two options only have a size 4. Now, to put that in perspective, most of the constellations come equipped with a size 5. Now, granted, they can typically go up to size 6, and the Connie's a little bit bigger overall, but it's interesting to see how much shield the blue can actually get. The blue also comes with a size 4 power plant, which is going to be larger than the other two variants. I can't decide if I want to call them Cutlasses or Cutlass. I'm not sure what the plural is. But the max size on them is going to be a size 4. So that could potentially mean that it could take a pounding, but at the same time, if you're taking fire and you're firing at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if both offense and defense suffer at the same time. I don't really know how that's all going to work out, and maybe it's going to be enough and it's all going to be gravy. And I'm actually kind of hoping to see that stat updated later on at some point. I'd like to see a little bit more power plant, even though it's already got an advantage there. Ben's also stated that the blue is going to have heavier armor, which probably accounts for some of its extra mass, and it's set at 36,000 kilograms right now. He's already stated that they're not going to be putting in like armor states right now, partially because all the different stats and everything are hard to keep updated. But in addition to that, it also allows them to do some balancing behind the scenes that kind of helps them out. But it is going to have more armor. Another thing that's probably adding to its overall weight are going to be the holding cells, which are on the interior of the ship. Those cells are what make it a great option for bounty hunters, kind of like the Avenger is. Now, it's worth noting that the cells can be removed, and as a result, when you pull them out, you're going to be able to get up to 120 freight units overall, which also makes it a pretty decent transport vehicle overall. Now, getting back to weapons, the blue comes equipped with 8 missiles stock, which the black doesn't have. Now, that's not a huge advantage for the blue because I think they're going to be pretty cheap to add. So it'll be pretty easy for the black to actually kind of match the blue overall. Now, it is nice knowing, though, that the missiles on the blue are considered stock equipment. So when you get your insurance claim back from it being destroyed, you're going to be getting your missiles back, too. The primary engines on the blue are a bit more powerful, at least from what we can kind of gather from the names. So that's going to kind of help it not to lose a ton of speed. And who knows, it may even be the fastest option overall. But we're going to have to play the waiting game with that one as well. Overall, I kind of expect it, with this ship being kind of the heaviest variant, and since it really has the same thrusters, it may be the least nimble of the group, but I've heard other people online saying that might not be the case. We don't really know, and I feel like I say that about a lot, but that's kind of the state of the game right now. And then the blue, kind of like the black, also comes with the tractor beam and the docking collar. But one final note that the devs have mentioned regarding the blue is that you might be able to actually pull people over in this quote-unquote police option and then jump them while you've got them in a routine traffic stop. Overall, I think that's a pretty cool and kind of a scary thought. And I'd like to see kind of how that all works out. I can envision NPCs falling for that trick a lot more than a real player. One last thing that I initially forgot to mention, which is why I'm editing this in, is that the blue actually comes with a different cockpit, and you can kind of compare those in the visuals you'll see up above. The last variant of the group is probably one of the more interesting ones, and that's the red. And the red is listed as being the search and rescue version of the Cutlass, and appears to be able to really serve kind of as a mobile medical facility. Kind of similar to how the blue sacrifices cargo space for the holding cells, the red's going to sacrifice cargo space for the medical beds. Now, with the stock setup, the red can actually carry no cargo, whereas with the holding cells, the blue can carry 30. Now, I guess you can consider the people in your medical bays as cargo, but that's not really going to be in your freight units. However, if you pull out those beds, you're going to jump up to 120 just like the blue. Now, the power plant's exactly the same as the one that's on the black, but when it comes to the engines, it doesn't really seem to have anything stealthy. So I would almost expect it to be a bit more powerful than the ones that the black actually has. The blue has the hammer 5.4s, the red has the hammer 4.4. So I think when we talk about thrust, it's probably going to fall somewhere between the black and the blue. But it is heavier than the black, so it may all end up evening out. We don't really know. Now, where the red gains the kind of hospital or ambulance abilities overall, it does give up some offensive firepower. Now, the stock, the red only comes equipped with the wing guns that the others both have, those sucker punches. It has the ability to add a size 3 gun on the nose, but it's not going to come stock with that option. And both other options either have missiles already or the ability to mount them, but the red's not even going to give you that option at all. And finally, it has the option to add a class 5, but on the stock model, it won't be equipped. So, like both other options, again, it's going to have that docking collar and the tractor beam, but in addition, it also comes with the auto dock medical facilities and the long-range scanner. Now, the red can play, basically that perfect search and rescue role, which is basically what's intended of the vehicle, or it could potentially be used for slightly more dangerous or dark activities. I could see the pirates pulling out the beds of the red variant, equipping those guns that aren't actually on the stock one, and using that as taking advantage of that long-range scanner to really find targets. Now, enemies may not be as concerned about a medic ship and then end up letting their guard down a little bit, but maybe they should be worried by that. It's just something that the pirates may have in mind, and as we've seen on the forums, they kind of have plans to get kind of crafty. So once we get to the persistent universe, I would say definitely don't judge a book by its cover. So there you have it. All three different variants that are all currently available, at least for the time being. Now, the big questions come in like, should I upgrade? Well, I think there's several things to keep in mind with this, and one of those is the additional cost with these variants. You know, an interesting note that I haven't mentioned yet is that Ben confirmed that all three variants are going to have different stock jump drives, and the cost of the ship might reflect how good those drives actually are. So based on that information, I would expect the blue to have the best jump engine of the group, followed by the red, followed by the black. But we don't know anything else about that or any specific details. You know, does that mean things like better jump drives can go further, or maybe go through different types of jumps, or maybe it has better efficiency overall? Can you add the blue's jump drive on a black? We don't know. Again, there we are with those words again. I don't know. Now, the blue's going to come in with an upgrade cost of about $50, while the red comes in to upgrade from the black at $20. Now, that's been a really hot topic for a lot of people when looking over these variants. It seems like most people see the value that you can gain in the red, so that $20 seems pretty justified. However, there's been countless threads on the forums with people being really critical of the blue and what you get for that additional money. Now, I personally see the bigger shield, the better stock power plant, heavier armor, more engines, a better jump engine, the holding cells, getting the missiles stock, etc. to be a pretty fair deal, but there's a lot of people that don't. Now, personally, I wouldn't mind seeing an option for a heavier turret on the blue, and that would probably really seal the deal. But in my mind, it's not really a deal breaker at this point. Now, I do like that these new variants offer some decent variety and feel they really kind of fit in with Drake's overall style pretty well. Now, I will admit, though, that I think the names are pretty underwhelming where they currently stand. I don't know if I'd prefer something planetary or space, but anything other than these colors. But whatever, it's not the name of the ship that counts, it's the ship itself. I personally bought the blue upgrade, and I made that decision based on two primary reasons. One is that the Cutlass is currently probably my most utilitarian ship, so I envision pulling out the holding cells and kind of having myself a heavier armed and protected transport vehicle that I can use on certain missions. And then the second reason was because it actually gives my Avenger some redundancy. Now, that may seem like a negative statement right there, but I think there's enough customization with the Cutlass where I'm not going to really lose that functionality. And then that way, as more ships come out, I can decide which of those two ships is going to fit my needs better, especially in relation to the fleet I'm flying with. And then I may end up being able to kind of melt one of those, or maybe two ships, to get my hands on that deep space fighter whenever that comes out. So, kind of overall, I think for those that are interested in a search and rescue role, I think the red's a great option. I think for those that are looking for that kind of support style ship for their organizational fleet, it might serve as a good option to keep players alive, especially until we know more about that hospital ship that I think's in Wave 4. I'm also interested to kind of see how good the red option will be when playing solo, you know, kind of looking around for like NPC that actually need help, or real players. I could see it being kind of scarce, but at the same time, I imagine if that's a game mechanic, there's going to be opportunities to do this out there. Bottom line overall, at least in my mind, is if you want the most bang for your buck, the Cutlass Black is still your best option overall. It's the cheapest, it has the most variety, it has the most cargo, and it can be really heavily customized. So unless you really have specific goals in mind or just prefer the style or maybe the looks of one of them, I'd stick with the black. The blue makes sense for me, the red might make sense for you, but overall, that's something for you to decide on your own. So that's it for now. Sorry, I know it's another longer video. I could be long-winded. I can't help it. But I try not to forget anything, which I probably still have done. So if you have opinions or you want to know more, please throw them in the comments. I'm happy to read them, and I'll answer as many as I can. Stay tuned for my next video coming up, which I'm planning on being a review of my Track IR, which I recently got my hands on. And I'm going to kind of go through the setup, impressions, software, etc. Other than that, stay tuned for a whole lot more Star Citizen content. Appreciate you guys watching, and take care.